What I've learned is that growth often look, much less glamorous than people imagine. If you ask me if there is one thing I would leave people who are considering this journey with, it's this.
One lovely thing I would love to do with all our guests, and you being our first guest, probably have it the hardest. Maybe you will answer the question, is a riddle me this. So I have cities, but no houses live there. I have mountains, but no trees grow there. I have water, but no fish swim in it. I have roads, but no cars drive on them. What am I? Welcome to Voices of Career Reality, the show where we cut through the highlight reel and talk about what building a career actually looks like. No polished success stories, no overnight wins, just real people, real decisions, real moments of doubt and breakthrough, and the honest conversation about what it takes to find your direction and grow in it. I'm Annalisha Noel, founder of Achiever OS, and someone who built my own career map from scratch because the system wasn't designed to hand one to me. This show exists because that experience isn't mine alone. It belongs to every ambitious person who was never given the tools, the clarity, or the proof that they were on the right path. Every episode, we sit with someone whose voice in careers has a different perspective, in the hope to bring value to your career journey. This is Voices of Career Reality. Let's get into it. My guest today is Zeina Anos. Zeina is founder and managing director of Zeina Advisory and a very respected voice in governance, risk and compliance within financial services. Zeina has 26 years of experience building and leading transformational programs. Zeina has navigated from the world of corporate into entrepreneurship, and today she's going to give us her perspective of that switch. We're going to go over what made her decide to change direction, what people got wrong about her when she was making that move, how the skills she had built for years turned out to be her biggest asset in a context no one expected, and how she proved her value when her full picture wasn't visible, and what she wished had existed to make that transition faster. The last one, I suspect, is going to land for a lot of people listening. So Zeina, welcome to Voices of Career Reality, and thank you for being our very first guest.
Thank you, Annalisha, for the opportunity. I'm truly looking forward to have this discussion with you today, and I hope whatever I say would stay with people who are considering a similar journey of mine. So to start with, I think what made me decide to change direction, I would say it wasn't one big moment. If I look back, it was a series of things that slowly brought me to the same conclusion. My husband and I made a decision to move to the UK for our family and for our children's future. After nearly 20 years in Abu Dhabi, it was a huge transition. My career was there, my network was there. Many of the people I loved and shared a life with were there. For the first time, in a very long time, I wasn't thinking about the next role. I was thinking about the next chapter of our lives. Of course, opportunities came my way. I had good job offers, and I won't pretend the financial side wasn't a factor, because it absolutely was. When you've spent years building a successful career, walking away from a regular paycheck isn't something that you take lightly, of course, but then there was that day when my daughter walked to me and asked me, "Mom, whatever job you take, can you still take me to school and pick me up?"
Oh.
Yes. To her, it was a simple question.
Yeah.
To me, it was not, Annalisha.
Absolutely.
That question stayed with me. And I still remember that night, I couldn't sleep. I sat down with a pen, paper, and I started to sketch all types of scenarios, opportunities, risks, business plan, numbers, you name it, because I just wanted to see what can I do, to respond to that question. Because in that moment, I realized that what she was really asking was whether I would be present, whether I would build a life that gave me the freedom to be there at the beginning and end of her day. And that really matters to her and eventually to me. So going back to that night, I realized while doing all of these calculations that I was not trying to decide whether I want to build something of my own. Actually, I had already decided. And by the time the sun came up, the Excella existed.
Wow.
Not as an organization, not as a business plan, but as a commitment. I committed to the existence of the Excella. And if I'm honest, truly honest about it, it wasn't a decision that was really about changing careers. It was about redefining success altogether. For years, success to Zeina was measured by progression, by the organizations that I joined, by the titles, by the achievement. But suddenly, I found myself after this question, or this question is what triggered it, asking myself a totally different question. What kind of life do I want to build? And that question changed everything.
Wow, so amazing. I mean, that question from your daughter was probably, like you said, so simple to her, like, Mom's going to take me to school or not. But for you, that was like the biggest question possibly of that point of your life. That's really beautiful as well.
Yeah, because to her, even that transition, and Alicia, it was difficult to my family too. And to her, she was, consoling herself that, okay, we moved here from a country where I was born, a country that feels home to us, okay, to a country that is completely new to us. We come here for the holidays, but not to live, of course. And then, okay, looking at the bright side of it, I have mommy dropping me to school and then picking me up. So that was so simple to her. But it really landed, in a different way.
Yeah, I think even, for her, there was like a fear of change as well.
Yes.
Compared to the different fear that you had with, like how you're going to financially settle in and all that kind of like adult stuff. To her, that was like, the most fearful thing for her. Really, really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Zeina. So in terms of that whole, change of direction, once you started and you get into the field of, right, I'm building Zeina, this is my position for success, what did people misunderstand about you when you were trying to make the move? Because I know there'll be people that will say, you've got great skills in corporate, why don't you just get another good, great paying job? What was the misunderstanding that people had about that when you were making a move?
Thank you for the question. I love it. I think people misunderstood many things, but I would focus for the sake of the discussion on two things. The first was that I had it all figured out. When people hear that someone, left a senior career to start a business, they often assume that there is that moment of certainty, that I woke up or you wake up on a morning with a clear plan and complete confidence. That was not my experience at all. I had doubts, I had fears, a lot of fears. I had spreadsheets full of scenarios and contingency plan. I still remember I had 3 diaries with different colors, the pen holding pens with different colors, sketching and, trying to figure out, is this scenario better or that scenario, coming from a risk mindset. I was worried about the financial implication, very worried actually. And I was worried about whether I was making the right decision for my family and the right decision for myself. All of these worries were real. The second misconception was that I was being reckless. People thought I'm reckless. And yes, even my extended family. From the outside, I can understand why it looked that way. I had spent nearly 20 years building a successful career in Abu Dhabi, in a city and a market that people from all over the world, aspire either to live in or work in. Then I moved countries and chose not to stop right back into another employed role. Wow, that was big, But what people did not see were the years of reflections that happened before that decision became visible. They don't see these things, okay? The move to the UK did not create the question. It actually forced me to answer it.
Wow.
To answer those years of reflection.
Yes.
By that stage, I think, and that's very important, I had reached a point where I really wanted greater ownership over my time, my decisions, and the direction of my future. I no longer wanted my growth, my opportunities, or my ceilings to be determined by either someone else's priorities or even insecurities, because a lot of our careers are shaped by someone else.
Yes.
Either their priorities or sometimes their insecurities play a major role in how your future and your career, shape off.
Yes.
So I did not want that. That does not mean, and this is where people misunderstood, that I stopped valuing the career I had built. No. On the opposite, it gave me the experience, the confidence, and the perspective to make a different choice altogether. And the truth is, people often see that leap, okay? But they rarely see the years of thinking that happened before taking that leap, okay? And they almost, and I can, I would like to overstress on this, that they almost never see the courage it takes to choose a different definition of success, especially when the old one is still working perfectly well.
Yeah, honestly, that totally resonated with me. Moving from the corporate world into entrepreneurship, like all your contingencies are listed. What you're going to do if this don't work, and what if that don't work? What's the next thing you're going to do? So success looks very different in terms of entrepreneurship, and then what success looks like when you're within the corporate world and you have a ceiling, like you say, and that's how far you can go. Well, like you said, moving from corporate world into entrepreneurship you didn't start from scratch. You had some skills and assets and knowledge that you brought over into your new sort of switch into this entrepreneurial world. So this is the question. What skills from your previous corporate world did you bring over into entrepreneurship? What was the biggest asset that you think, the one or two things were really valuable bringing over into entrepreneurship?
Sure. I would say, Annalisa, almost all of them, but not in the way I expected. People often assume that the most valuable thing that I brought with me was the technical expertise. Okay, and of course, my background in governance, risk, and compliance, including the exposure to various sectors, was incredibly valuable, I would say. But looking back, the skills that transfer most weren't technical at all. It was judgment in the first place.
Okay.
After years of experience of navigating complex organizations, difficult decisions, competing priorities, I had developed the ability to walk into uncertainty without needing to having all the answers. And that's very important. I learned how to assess situations, ask better questions maybe, make decisions, and move forward even when the path wasn't completely clear. And I think in today's environment, this turns out to be more useful than I realized at that time. So that's very important.
Yeah.
Another skill in terms of skill transfer. Another skill that I transferred was perspective. When you have spent years working with different organizations, different managers, a few leaders, and challenges, you start to recognize patterns. You learn that most problems aren't as unique as they first appear to be. That pattern, recognition is incredibly valuable when you're building something from scratch.
Yeah.
Because it helps you avoid reacting emotionally to every obstacle.
Yes.
And we are very emotional by nature. I'm very emotional by nature. So I learned that the hard way. The thing that surprised me most, though, during that transfer of skill was what I did not miss. Okay? For most of my career, there was always another role, another milestone, another target to achieve, another, achievement to work towards. Okay? Then this is how you're programmed when you're moving along your career path. Then suddenly there wasn't anything of all of that. When you move from that there wasn't anything similar. And what I discovered was that I wasn't motivated by the chase as much as I thought I was. What motivated me was creating something meaningful, solving problems, having ownership over the outcome. And that was the real shift for me. For years, I thought success was about climbing the ladder. What I eventually realized that was success is also having the freedom. And I cannot emphasize enough the element of a freedom to decide where you want the ladder to be leaning in towards in the first place. And that's, something that I think, is important. So that's a lesson I believe I couldn't have learned it any other way.
Wow. I mean, that is just beautiful. I'm just picking up resilience. Like, that's probably one of the strongest assets I thought that in all of that, the resilience to be able to move on and hold on and take over that to the next side. And also, I think I've picked up, like, as you said, perspective of how people kind of behave and think. Strong stakeholder management. I think some people miss that. That's a real skill. Having someone move from one side of the table to your side by being able to work with them on their perspective is a really strong skill that I think in every career really needs to have. So thank you for sharing that. Really, really beautiful. Now, let's talk about moving from in the world of work into entrepreneurship, bringing over your skills that was very personal to you and how you would manage Zexilla. Now you have to prove to everyone that, yes, I am running this business and I have the skills that I could help you to get your risk and governance under control and help you to manage your business. So how were you able to prove your value to people who couldn't see the full picture? How did you close that gap between who you were in the corporate world and how now you can now be an entrepreneur and help businesses actually achieve the goals in sort of risk and governance, etc.?
Sure. Your question made me smile and bring a lot of memories. But I would say at first, I thought I had to explain myself like everyone else, I spent nearly, as I said, like 20 years plus, building a reputation. And suddenly I was in a new market where people don't know who I am. They don't know my story, that is very important back in the country that I came from. My track record or the work that had brought me there. For a while, if I want to be honest, I found that frustrating, very frustrating. You know what you're capable of, but other people, let's face it, they only see specifically, as I said, when they don't know you, they don't know your track record, they know nothing literally about you. They only see the part of you that is visible at that moment, to them. Then I realized something important because of that frustration and many other things. I did not need to spend my energy convincing people. I needed to spend my energy being myself, being Zeina. I've always been quite direct. If I see a problem, I'll say it. If I disagree with something, I'll respectfully challenge it. If I believe there's a better way, I have no issue in having that conversation. I had no issue, and I still have no issue in having that conversation. That was true throughout my career, and it did not change because now I started a business. And I know, for the matter of fact, it will never change because this is me. In fact, I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned from this transition is not to dilute myself, to fit other people's expectations. As I said earlier, sometimes you change to either fit someone's expectations or to deal with someone's insecurities. Yeah. Why should I? Why should you? There were definitely moments in my career, whether previous or current even, where it would have been easier to say less or to challenge less or even become a smaller, version of yourself, which I completely refuse, because this is not who I am. And ultimately, in my humble view and experience, this is not what creates trust. So what built credibility eventually, I realized, wasn't pitching myself or listing my achievements. It was showing up genuinely, consistently, solving problems, sharing insights, and letting people experience how Zeina works and how Zeina fits. And some people understood that immediately. Others did not, and maybe still don't, okay? But that's completely okay. One of, I think, the most liberating things we learn is that not everyone needs to understand you or to understand your value. And the right people usually recognize it without needing an explanation in the first place or a lengthy explanation. So once I stopped trying to prove myself and started focusing more on being useful, everything became just much simpler. Everything falls into perspective.
Wow. Honestly, I really endorse the fact that you just cannot please everyone. You cannot put yourself in 5 or 6 different perspectives of people. You just have to be authentically you. And like you say, continually show up and solve problems. That speaks for itself. That's a proof in itself. So that's beautiful. Now, beautiful career, beautiful transition, beautiful story. Actually, I really, really love listening to this. We spoke a few times before, but we've not really got it. I love that this is like a fresh perspective in our conversation. But in all that beauty, I think there's always one thing that would kind of resonate with you in your transition and in the decisions that you make. And I would love to ask, what would have made the transition easier or faster for you?
I think, and Alicia, looking back, I think the answer is very simple. I truly wish I had trusted myself sooner. For a while, I tried to keep one foot in the old world, and one foot in the new world. And I don't deny that part of my heart is still in the old world. But I weighted options, considered opportunities, and kept looking for certainty before fully committing. The problem is that, as we all know, that certainty never arrives.
Yes.
At least not in the way you and I think it will. Okay, or even others for the matter. So what I did not anticipate was that the hardest part of the transition wouldn't be financial. Though I spent, hours thinking of that, okay? It wouldn't be operational. How can I operate without having, an organization supporting me, a team, all of, the organization assets, the infrastructure all together. Yeah. So it wasn't also about operation. It wouldn't even be professional. It would be personal, For most of my adult life, I knew exactly who I was as Zeina. My career had been built over nearly 2 decades. I had experience, stability, reputation, solid network, a sense of identity. Then suddenly, I'm here, in a new country, doing something from scratch, without the structure, without the familiarity that I had always known. That's not, easy. It's definitely not. Yeah. And the money fear was real. And I know many of the entrepreneurs, don't, focus on that. But let's face it, the money is one of, the calculations that you do. And it was a fear, as I said, a real fear. But I was able to calculate my way around it to an extent. I could build the spreadsheets to a certain extent, model scenarios to a less certain extent. I'm not good when it comes to models, and definitely manage risk, okay? But the identity shift was very different. It was different, that was about letting go of an identity I had carried for many years, and having the patience to discover what came next. Yeah. That was, the main thing. What I've learned is that growth often look, much less glamorous than people imagine. It's usually very messy. It's very uncomfortable. Yeah. It's full of doubts and questions and moments where you wonder whether you have made, the right decision.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Am I right? Am I all of these, questions? You try to show up every day, showing that confidence and, that knowledge of what's coming next. But let's face it, we're human at the end of the day, and we have our doubts and fears. But that's also, where the transformation or the real transformation happens. If I look back to your question, Alicia, I realized, as I said, that the biggest transition wasn't geographical, wasn't professional. It was, as I said, purely person. I wouldn't say purely person. It was personal. Yeah. I stopped building my life around what looked successful from the outside. That's for sure. And I started building my life around what mattered most to me, to Zeina. Okay. The people I love, the freedom, and I repeat, the freedom to choose, that's priceless. The ability to be present, the opportunity to build something that truly reflects my values and not the values of others, okay? Well, yes, sometimes, our values can sync together, that's only normal or very normal. But there is a certain beauty in having the opportunity to build something that is really reflecting you and your values. For you, I thought, confidence came first and then you take the next step. Then I learned that usually confidence is an after, it comes afterward. It's an aftermath, as they say. Yes. You take the step, you figure it out, you build the trust in yourself along the way. If you ask me if there is one thing I would leave people who are considering this journey with, it's this. At some point, you have to stop waiting for permission, okay? And you have to start trusting yourself. That's what changed everything for me. And this is why the Excella is here today.
Amazing. Honestly, everything you said just resonates. Confidence is one thing. I think it builds along the way. As so you see what you're working with and you see what you're building, you see the impact that you're building, and that confidence starts to build. But if you wait to start building once your confidence is there, then probably you would never build at all. So that's amazing. And I think you touched on what I was just going to ask. I was going to ask, what is one strong piece of advice you would like to share? And I think you've just shared that. So that's beautiful.
Yes. Now, I think the trust in ourselves is very important. Yes. Often we see people around us, even those who love us the most, sometimes they make you doubt yourself without, out of love completely. But I think, we should take a step back and, think of everything, in absolute matter, and then take that, trust and take the leap. There's always, something that can go right, something can go wrong, but we can always, change the shorter of the, course.
I agree. I think so. For me, what you're saying, it totally resonates. I remember when I wanted to start doing my own thing and moving away from corporate world, even my husband, the closest to me, he just could not understand it. He was saying that you're making, so much and so much, annually. Why would you leave, that security to move over? And for me, it was not just that immediate burst of confidence. Like you said, I wanted to do something that I felt like, represents me, the impact that I have and the impact I'm trying to build. And of course, what does it mean to move from this to this, and something that you can actually set an example for the generation that is coming behind you, your children and all of that. So yeah, that all of you said that has totally resonated with me. Now, one lovely thing I would love to do with all our guests, and you being our first guest probably have it the hardest, maybe you will answer the question, is a riddle me this. So I have cities, but no houses live there. I have mountains, but no trees grow there. I have water, but no fish swim in it. I have roads, but no cars drive on them. What am I?
So I have mountains, but no trees live there.
No.
I have fish, but no seas live there.
I have water, but no fish.
I have no fish. And then the first one, I have
cities, but no houses in it. I have roads, but no cars drive on them. What am I? Tricky.
The sky.
Really close. It's a map. I know, I probably would have guessed that myself, but I thought, it's lovely to pick up that in as a
yes, but it's nice. Specifically now the World Cup is around, I was thinking of something because of that. Okay, fun. Good one, Annalisa.
Amazing. Zeina, thank you so much for being part of this Voices of Career Reality. 26 years of expertise in the corporate world. One decisive move and a conversation I think a lot of people needed to hear. I think what stays with me really from this conversation is the fact that one question from your daughter solidified your decision, probably which you've been sitting on for a long time to make this big move. And I think that's something that nobody really tells you, like what is the simplest thing that you can think of? Everyone thinks of it as it being some massive, difficult kind of thing. I mean, the decision is sometimes difficult, but sometimes it's just that simple little thing that, solidifies your decision to make that transition. So this is to be able to see the full picture of who you are, and you made that and you find a way for yourself and you show up anyway, authentically. So today's conversation really, really hit home. So if anyone is in a moment of transition, trying to prove your value or trying to figure out how to make your next move, that is exactly the problem Achiever Meter was built to solve. Your career readiness, your verified growth, your evidence, all in one place. So the full picture of who you are is never invisible again. So you can find it at app.achievermeter.com. And to Zeina, thank you for being this honest. It matters more than you know. Thank you,
Annalisa, for the opportunity. And I wish you and the Achiever, group the greatest of success. I know, as I said, we have been in discussion for some time, and I'm equally proud of what you are building, Annalisa. And I truly wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. So Zeina from Zexula, I'm Annalisa. This has been Voices of Career Reality. Until next time, keep building.
Thank you.
Before we go, if today's conversation resonated with you, I want to speak directly to you for a moment. If you're at crossroads, if you're in transition, if you're working hard but not sure whether it's the right kind of hard, if you've been passed over and don't know why, if you have the ambition but not yet the clarity, you are exactly who this show is for, and you are exactly who Achiever Meter was built for. Achiever Meter is a career intelligence platform that tells you exactly where you stand, gives you a weekly action plan built specifically around your gaps, and builds a verified record of your growth that you can take to any employer and in any room that you get into. It's not a CV builder, it is infrastructure underneath your career. The thing that tracks what you actually do, verifies that you did it, and turns your progress into proof. Your career readiness score, your career growth, your next best actions, all in one place, built specifically for you. Go to app.achievemeter.com and start building. Your record starts the moment that you do. This has been Voices of Career Reality. I'm your host, Annalisa Noel. And until the next one, keep building.